Look closely at a map of Italy. Right in the middle of Rome, something strange appears. A tiny country exists entirely inside another country. It has its own borders, flag, and passport. Yet you can walk across it in 20 minutes. How did one nation end up swallowed whole by another? Why does this miniature state still exist today? And why has no one absorbed it in centuries? The answer is a story of geography and power. It begins with a hill, a river, and an empire. The country is Vatican City, the smallest state on Earth. It sits inside Rome, which sits inside Italy. Vatican City covers only about 49 hectares. That is smaller than many city parks around the world. Its population is around 800 people. Most are clergy, guards, or staff working inside its walls. To understand why it exists, we must rewind. The story begins nearly 2,000 years ago. Rome rose along the Tiber River. 7 hills gave it defense, water, and farmland nearby. The Tiber connected Rome to the sea. Trade ships reached the city through the river mouth. This geography made Rome powerful very early. Roads, aqueducts, and armies spread outward across Europe. When the Roman Empire eventually weakened, something filled the vacuum. The Christian church in Rome grew strong. Bishops in Rome claimed special authority. Over centuries, they became known as the popes. The popes ruled more than just souls. They governed lands across central Italy directly. These lands were called the Papal States. They stretched from the Adriatic coast to the Tyrrhenian Sea. For over 1,000 years, popes were kings too. They owned territory, armies, and taxed populations. Geography made this possible. Central Italy was fragmented and mountainous, hard to unify under any single ruler. The Apennine Mountains run down Italy like a spine. They separated regions and slowed conquest for centuries. Coastal plains were narrow and scattered. Each city-state defended itself behind walls and hills. So Italy was never one country during that era. It was dozens of small powers competing constantly. The Pope held the middle of the peninsula. This blocked any single ruler from uniting Italy easily. Powerful neighbors tried and mostly failed. The papal territory was a permanent obstacle in the center. Even mighty kings respected the popes diplomatically. To attack Rome was to attack all Christendom. The geography of central Italy also helped. Rivers, marshes, and hills protected papal lands from invasion. Neighboring powers like France and Spain often intervened, but none could permanently hold the papal heartland. Then came the 19th century, and everything shifted. A movement for Italian unification began. It was called the Risorgimento, meaning resurgence. Leaders wanted one Italian nation from the Alps to Sicily. The Kingdom of Piedmont in the north led the charge. Step by step, regions joined the new Italy. Lombardy fell into line, then Venice, then Naples. Old kingdoms dissolved as the map redrew itself. But Rome remained a problem. The Pope refused to give up his lands. French troops protected the Pope for years. They guarded Rome against the unifying Italian army. Then, in 1870, France withdrew its soldiers. They were busy fighting a war against Prussia. The Italian army marched on Rome quickly. They broke through the walls near Porta Pia. The Papal States collapsed in a single day. Rome became the new Italian capital almost overnight. But the Pope refused to accept this defeat. He retreated inside the Vatican walls in protest. For nearly 60 years, he never left. Successive popes called themselves prisoners of the Vatican. This created a strange standoff. Italy controlled Rome, but the Pope ruled nothing officially. Catholics around the world watched uneasily. Their spiritual leader had no country to call his own. Foreign governments stayed diplomatically careful. They recognized the Pope, but also recognized Italy. The geography of the standoff is fascinating. The Vatican sits on a hill called Mons Vaticanus. This hill rises across the Tiber from ancient Rome. It was once swampy, used for chariot races. Early Christians believed St. Peter was buried here. A modest church rose over the supposed tomb. That church grew into St. Peter's Basilica. It became the spiritual center of Western Christianity. Around it, walls and houses expanded over centuries. By the 1800s, it was a fortified city quarter. When Italy took Rome, these walls remained intact. The Pope simply stayed inside them and refused to leave. This is the key geographic detail. The Vatican already had clear physical boundaries. High walls, gates, and gardens defined its edge. It looked and functioned like a separate place. The infrastructure of independence was already there. All that remained was political recognition. Decades passed with no resolution at all. The Italian government wanted closure on the issue. Then in 1929, a deal was finally signed. It was called the Lateran Treaty. The Italian government negotiated with Pope Pius XI. Both sides needed each other for political reasons. The treaty recognized Vatican City as a sovereign state. Italy gave up any claim to its territory. In return, the Pope recognized Italy and Rome. The old standoff officially ended that year. Just like that, a new country was born, or rather, an ancient one was redrawn tiny. Vatican City became the smallest independent state on Earth. It was smaller than most universities or shopping centers. Its borders were drawn around existing walls. Where walls ended, white lines on stone marked the limit. St. Peter's Square is mostly Vatican territory, but a small strip near the entrance belongs to Italy. You can literally step across this line, 1 foot in Italy, 1 foot in Vatican City. There are no border checkpoints between them, no customs, no passport stamps, no fences anywhere. Yet it is fully a separate country. It issues its own stamps, coins, and license plates. It has its own postal service, famously efficient. Letters from Vatican City often arrive faster than Italian mail. It has its own small army, the Swiss Guard. They wear striped uniforms designed centuries ago. It has its own railway station, rarely used. The track runs only a few hundred meters before ending. It has its own radio station broadcasting worldwide, and its own newspaper printed daily in Italian. The Vatican prints its own euros under a special agreement. These coins are extremely rare and valuable to collectors. It even has a small heliport for arrivals. There is no room for an airport inside the walls. It has its own pharmacy and supermarket. These serve residents and select visitors quietly each day. But its biggest export is something invisible. It exports influence, faith, and global diplomatic weight. The Vatican museums hold priceless treasures inside. Visitors fund much of the small country's daily budget. Admission tickets, donations, and stamps add up steadily. The economy is tiny but remarkably self-sustaining. Would you ever want to visit a country this small, where you can cross it in minutes? Tell me in the comments what surprises you most about this place. I always love hearing which detail catches readers off guard. Now let's return to the deeper question. Why does this arrangement still survive today? Why hasn't Italy simply absorbed it? The answer is partly symbolic and partly practical. The Vatican is the headquarters of the Catholic Church. Over 1 billion Catholics worldwide look here. The Pope needs independence to lead them freely. If the Vatican were part of Italy, Italian law would apply. The Pope would be an Italian citizen subject to government. That would compromise the Church's global role. Independence keeps religious authority separate from any single nation. Geography makes this independence easy to maintain. The Vatican is small, walled, and surrounded by a friendly neighbor. It has no army worth fearing in modern terms. It has no resources anyone wants to seize. It poses no threat to Italy at all, so Italy has no reason to take it back. In fact, Italy benefits hugely from the arrangement. Millions of tourists visit Rome every year for the Vatican. They spend money in Italian hotels and restaurants. The tiny country boosts the surrounding economy enormously. This is why the enclave works so well. Both sides gain more from coexistence than conflict. Vatican City is technically called an enclave. An enclave is a territory completely surrounded by another country. There are only a few true enclaves in the world. Most countries share borders with multiple neighbors. Being completely surrounded creates total dependency. The Vatican relies on Italy for water, electricity, and food. There is no port, no farmland, no usable river access. Everything must come across the Italian border daily. This would be a weakness for most countries, but for the Vatican it works perfectly fine. The relationship is friendly and stable. Treaties guarantee free movement of goods and people. There is one other true enclave like this. The country of San Marino also sits inside Italy. San Marino is older and slightly larger. It perches on a mountain in northern Italy. Its geography saved it from conquest. The steep cliffs made it hard to attack and easy to defend. San Marino claims to be Europe's oldest republic. It survived through luck, terrain, and careful neutrality. But Vatican City is unique even among enclaves. It is the only one that is also a religious capital. This dual identity is its real protection. It is both a country and a sacred site. To attack it would offend 1 billion believers. To absorb it would create a global diplomatic crisis. So it remains, frozen in a perfect equilibrium, tiny, independent, and somehow permanent against all odds. Other small states exist for different reasons. Monaco, Liechtenstein, and Andorra survive through finance and tradition. Each clings to a unique niche the larger countries tolerate. None match the Vatican for symbolic global weight. The Vatican also holds extraterritorial properties. Several churches and offices in Rome belong to it officially. These buildings are Vatican soil even outside its walls. They function like embassies scattered around the city. The Pope's summer residence at Castel Gandolfo is another. It sits in the hills outside Rome under Vatican jurisdiction. This quiet network extends the Vatican's reach further, a tiny country with footprints across the wider region. Look at the bigger picture for a moment. Vatican City teaches us something about borders. Borders are not just lines on maps. They are agreements that survive only when everyone benefits. When geography, history, and politics align, even tiny states endure. When they don't, vast empires can vanish. The Papal States once stretched across central Italy. Today they fit inside a single neighborhood. Yet the core survived because it adapted carefully. It traded territory for permanence and influence. That is the deeper lesson here. Sometimes the smallest place can outlast the largest empire. A hill by the Tiber became a church. A church became a kingdom across Italy. A kingdom shrank into a walled enclave, and that enclave still shapes the world today. So next time you look at a map, remember, some of the most important places are barely visible. A dot, a wall, a hill by a river. That is all it took to outlast empires. Vatican City survives not by force or size. It survives because everyone around it agreed it should. If you enjoyed unpacking this strange little country, drop a comment with the next place you want explored. Subscribe and hit the bell for more on how the world really works. Because sometimes the smallest dot on the map tells the biggest story of all.